One. So if you're here, you know what we're doing. I'm not going to go into some big, long intro, but I can't believe it's been almost 4 years since I've had the chance to do a Reddit CFB AMA. So thankful for you guys with amazing questions. That's why we're doing it this way, because sitting in here and trying to type out answers to 60-some-odd questions did not feel appealing to me at all today. So we're going to go through the comments. Thank you guys so much. I cannot believe you had so many great questions to ask. We'll try to get to and through as many of these as possible. So let's start at the top. Honestly, one of our buddies, the excellent moderator for Reddit CFB, starting it up. So thanks again for having me, guys. What was the best thing you had at Commander's Palace back in January? One of the best restaurants in all of New Orleans. The turtle soup, outstanding. You have to get the Creole bread pudding souffle. There is something called like a beef tornado, which I think is just a hilarious thing to say. The pecan-crusted fish was excellent. We all shared a bunch of stuff, so I highly recommend it. But the turtle soup and the bread pudding are musts. Everything in between, you will not go wrong. So great question. That is a place in New Orleans, and honestly was referring back to the time we were in New Orleans for the national championship game. And also ask, what's it like realizing you may have been on the field for the last game played in what could be a very long time? We got to see each other, by the way, during the game or before the game, so that was awesome. It's weird now, considering that like January, mid-January, 13th or 14th or whatever it was, feels like forever ago, and it was at this point, about 3+ months ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago at this point. So that's what it's like. To know that might be the last game for a while, I mean, that stinks, obviously, but trying to keep a big picture perspective on it. If we got a college football season, in September, obviously we'd all be thrilled about it. That's still the hope, but when you hear other presidents of universities and commissioners start to talk about these things and the possibilities of maybe that was the last football game we play for quite some time, obviously that stinks, but. I'm glad we got that game. I'm glad we got to be there for it. Awesome night, awesome game, awesome crew to work it with, and we had an absolute blast. Great couple questions. Curtis Lynn, what is the most ridiculous food you want to bring into the booth for a broadcast? What if we ate crawfish, hands and all, on TV? I mean, that's an experience in and of itself. To eat crawfish for the first time, which I did at Kaylee Hartung's parents' house. They were so kind to us when we all got to work a game in Kaylee's neck of the woods. So I would love to actually try that on camera. I think that'd be entertaining. What would be a dumb food? Like, I can't imagine what a dumb food would be. Sometimes why? Do you keep in regular contact with Mac Brown? Do you miss having him in the booth with you? You two were a great combo. Yes, I still keep in contact with Mac Brown. If I look at my voicemails, I have 2 saved from Mac. One on my birthday this past year, and one on the day after my dad passed. So I have 2 voicemails saved in my phone from Mac. Just keep those. And we talked actually about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, right before he was about to go on air for Feinbaum and do an interview with Feinbaum on the SEC network. We happened to be on the phone for like the 15 minutes before. So we caught up recently. He's doing well. Obviously he's over this like the rest of us are, but obviously he's one of the all-time great humans I've been lucky enough to know, and I'm sure any player who played for him or anybody who's worked with him at ESPN would say the same thing about him. What has been your favorite game to call? What is a bucket list game for you? Favorite game might be up there. It's the right there. That's a shot of, I guess I could just do this. That is a shot of the field after the Iron Bowl. We were right in front of the late Rod Bramblitt's booth, and I took that photo right when they stormed the field, and I made the final call, and I took out my phone and snapped that photo. So that still might be my favorite game that I've ever called to this day, because wow, I mean, how do you beat that? What game is a bucket list game? I mean, obviously like a Michigan Ohio State, you'd love to be a part of that. I'd love to call an Iron Bowl on TV or something like that one day too. But I mean, there's so many great games, and the newness of it is great. I called my first Egg Bowl this year. Anytime you get a chance to call something that is like a new game, I think it's awesome. What school has the best booth to broadcast from? This is from, oh, I'm sorry, that was from Cougs35. My apologies. Cougs35, thanks for the question. Barry Bear 90, which school has the best booth to broadcast from and the worst? Man, there are some great booths. Syracuse is not great, and it has nothing to do with the positioning. It's just the last time I was there was in 2016 at the Carrier Dome, and they hadn't done the air conditioning yet. So in the second week of September, when we're doing the Lamar Jackson breakout game during his Heisman year, it's me, Mac, and Molly McGrath. We are sweating. So off the top of my head, because the TV booths around the country, especially with some of the renovations that some of these schools have done, are really good. They're great. Alabama's got a really nice booth. You go to an SEC school for the most part, they have a very nice booth. There are some tough ones. If you ask Pat McAfee, he might say Tulane just because he couldn't really see out the sides of the windows because the press box windows were so, they jutted out so far, you may not have actually been able to see see the game. So if you ask Pat McAfee, he might say that. Damp Frijoles, whom I interact with on Twitter often. Hey, Adam, welcome back to our humble abode. Big UCF fan, I know. What was it like being at and calling the 2017 War on I-4 and in particular Mike Hughes' kickoff return touchdown? Do you have any tips for someone wanting to break into the sports journalism and or broadcasting? That's all it said. I'm assuming he meant industry. 17 War on I-4 might be right behind the Iron Bowl in terms of my favorite games I've ever called. Certainly on TV, it's the best game I've ever called. That Iron Bowl call was on the radio. Doing the War on I-4 on TV, because of the timing of it, the timing of it was just so off the charts. I'm going to talk with some people actually from UCF today about it. I think the electricity in the building, the fact that it's 10-0 against 9-1, UCF's playing for a perfect season. First time that game had real value, inherent value to it because of just the result of the game. Winner goes to the division championship. It was an ABC game. It was on Black Friday at that 3:30 window, which is one of the more popular windows. That's one of the highest rated windows of the year on college football on ABC. So when you get a game like that on a Black Friday with that type of atmosphere, with that type of stakes, and then to have the game that went back and forth and the final 2 minutes, which were just off the charts, the electricity in the building and then the plays themselves. The Mike Hughes kickoff return touchdown was awesome. I was jumping up and down. Dusty was in the booth next to me. I was jumping up and down at how exciting that moment was, legitimately. And after I made the call, my jaw was I still remember being in the booth and Dusty and I were just grabbing each other's shoulders. We couldn't believe it. We were we were bracing ourselves because of just how intense the moment was. So I would say that was one of the best moments ever. Any tips, by the way? Become a student of it. Become a student of the craft, of the industry. What's good, what's bad. Figure out how to do it, and then do it as often as possible. Whatever aspect of the journalism, industry you're looking at. Whatever you can do it as much as you possibly can. Cambodian Drywall, great name. Welcome back, Adam. On August 27, 2015, you participated in another AMA. In that thread, you told us you bathe yourself in Nair. There is a link to this, so I do want to hit it and see if I can narrow that down. I guess the question was, I don't know what the question was, but man, I got weird for sure in the answer. You told us that you bathe yourself in Nair as you still look as impeccably groomed today as you did nearly 5 years ago. I assume you still follow that step in your beauty regimen. Are you having difficulty purchasing sufficient Nair during the shelter-at-home shoppers who hoard environment we find ourselves in today? This was the most niche of niche questions, and I appreciate you, Cambodian Drywall, for asking that. I am awful right now in terms of... Actually, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Yesterday, I groomed, all right? First time I took a shower, all right? That was a big deal. And this era that we're in, if we're all staying at home. I know not everybody's showering every day, or at least not everybody's making the effort to. So I showered yesterday, and I cleaned up the back of my neck, and I shaved, I cleaned up the beard a little bit. I buzzed my hair down, pretty tight, about 10 days or maybe 2, I guess it's 2 weeks now. So it's growing pretty fast. What a great question. Or a terrible question, depending on who you are. The original question, by the way, was what is your manscaping routine? I don't have a podcast that can like advertise for Manscaped or anything. I don't have a promo read. The Punisher, P-U-N, is capitalized. Adam, do you always write Amin as Amin to pun off your last name? Not really, but I can see based on your username why you would ask that question, and I don't have a problem with that. Pieman, Iowa. I'm just going to tell you that he went on a really long run from It's Sunny, and I think that's great. That's always just delightful. Curtis Lynn asked another question. Who would you most like to have in the broadcast booth with you to announce a game that you haven't shared the broadcast booth with before? Which game would you like it to be? I'd love to work with Todd Blackledge or Kirk Herbstreit. I've never gotten a chance to work with either one of them. You know, they're our top two college football analysts at ESPN. And there's so many great analysts out there at other networks, at ESPN. I mean, it'd be silly for me to narrow it down to that. Joel Klatt's awesome. Like there's so many great analysts. And I'm just being I literally just named like the top two people at ESPN and the top guy at Fox. The list goes deep. All right. Brock Heward at Fox, who is my old colleague at ESPN, although we worked the spring game together. There's just so many great analysts at ESPN and outside of that. So many great people to work with. But I would love to work with Kirk or Todd someday. And I'd love to do a Rose Bowl game. I would obviously a national championship game would be. I would love to do the Rose Bowl at some point. Never been to the Rose Bowl. Never done a UCLA game there either. Strawberry Tea asks, where's the first place you want to go after the COVID-19 restrictions are raised? I would kill somebody for a great fade right now. That's not literally true, but at times I have felt enough rage to make me think, after looking at myself in the mirror and realizing I look like a jackass, that I would kill for a fade right now. Are we getting a season this year or what? This is from Shitty Place Kicker. I'm just reading what they say. Are we getting a season this year or what? Again, I think we'll get a season, but maybe that's just the wishful thinker in me. I don't know. I think it's okay to say I don't know. I wish I knew better. I honestly do. I wish I knew better. I can see what the elements are. I can see that the elements of, hey, if there's no students on campuses in the fall, are you even going to have students to put on the football field? And why would you do that? You'd put them at risk. So I can see the pieces there. Everybody can see the pieces that are there, or you can deduce the pieces, but nobody has a clear picture of it. I'm not going to pretend that I do, but I understand why you'd ask that question. Strawberry Tea, another question. A couple from Strawberry Tea. What's the best football game you've ever watched live? And was Clippy the best Microsoft ever did? Best thing Microsoft ever did, or the worst? I'm going to go ahead and say it's definitely the best, because you can gauge everything else, but are you really going to be upset about an animated paperclip asking you if you need something? God forbid we all had a live talking paperclip to help us out with our office routine. Really, at its essence, I have no issue with it. Best football game I've ever watched live, it's Iron Bowl. I think just being able to have seen it and called it. Is cereal a soup? No, I don't think so. Roll War Tide Eagle. Adam, I wanted to get your opinion about the greatest rivalry in all of sports. Now, it goes without saying, but I'm referring to Penn State versus Texas Tech. What was your personal favorite game in the series? I am not Googling the series. Why isn't this game played yearly? I'm assuming travel and because people in Lubbock hate people in college or in Happy Valley, in State College. Why is Texas Tech solely to blame for this? I'll blame them for it. Are they scared? Yeah. Step it up. If somebody from Texas Tech asked the question, I would have supported their side of it. Why won't they return my calls? You got to spread them out. Will you ask to see if they got my messages? I don't have any contact info. Would you broadcast their next matchup? Hell yeah, I would. And what are your thoughts on tortillas? Great. Prefer corn for the tacos. Prefer flour for quesadillas. That's my basic thought on tortillas. Welcome back. What's the greatest rivalry you've never called, and what's second to Army-Navy? I think Michigan-Ohio State. That was the first one that came to mind. I think it's such a cool rivalry. That was from Beat Navy again, and so is this one. In your pre-major network career, you called games for several minor league baseball teams. Which one had the best logo, the best mascot, the best intra-inning on-field contests? I'm going to go with best logo. I didn't work for the Montgomery Biscuits, but I did think they just have one of the best logos in all of minor league baseball. my buddy Joe Davis, who does games for Fox, he let me jump on some games with him when I was warming up for my season. I do have a hat over there. I'm not going to take this off and run to go get it, but it's a Somerset Patriots hat. I worked for the Somerset Patriots for 2 seasons in New Jersey, and they have a really cool logo. I love their logo. I worked for the Gary South Shore Railcats. Amazing logo as well, I will also say. Best mascot, I'm going to say the Railcats. I know the Buttered Biscuit, but I didn't work for them. I think the Railcats, having a Railcat as Rusty the Railcat, in fact, as the mascot, pretty great. Best intra-inning on-field contest. Well, when I worked in Gary, Indiana for the Railcats, we did bring the San Diego Chicken a couple of times. So anytime the San Diego Chicken was on the field, automatically great. You recently took part in the most important interview of all time. This was in reference to an interview I did with a bunch of college dog mascots that went viral this past weekend. Which dog was the best dog? I enjoyed Jonathan. I see Jonathan the Husky a lot at UConn, doing so many UConn games. And in fact, the handler for Jonathan was the one who messaged me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. So I'll give credit to Jonathan the Husky, Jonathan 14, for that. How do I get to spend that much time with other dogs? Fool people into thinking you're a respected broadcaster who has an internet connection and can do a Zoom meeting. I think that's the easiest way to do it. I did apply today to adopt a dog. So that was a big step for me. Because I've never been able to have a dog. I live here, yeah. It's a fine place to have a dog, but I've never been home. This is the longest I've been home in a long time. So I think this is probably the time. If I'm ever going to do it, now's the time, and I'll figure it out later. You know, when I know we're going to be back calling football games, I'll figure all the other stuff out later. Get the dog first. I wasn't sure if you were kidding, but at one point during the 15 Hawaii Bowl, which was a blowout, it was San Diego State, Cincinnati, you said you never learned how to swim. Is that true? I tried to learn how to swim. And I almost drowned when I was younger. So I have like this weird, deep-seated psychological fear of it. No big deal. I almost died once. I'm sure I'm making it out to be a much bigger deal than it is. I want to learn. Maybe this will be the summer. Nobody's going to be, using the pool. That's the problem. Nobody's going to be cleaning the pool anywhere. So I don't know if I'm going to find a spot to learn, but I've made it a point to at least keep telling myself that I'm going to learn and not actually putting in the effort. All right, Keyline 503. Here we go. Can we get the backstory on that BYU game where Mac left in the fourth quarter to go to the airport? Yes, I will answer this question. I have been somewhat reluctant, but I think we've once we've hit the four season mark, I think we've hit the statute of limitations, and Mac is obviously out now and doing great things at North Carolina. This is understandable, by the way. Everything that happened is understandable. So I think you'll get it when I tell you. So we were doing the Friday night package in 2016. Which means our schedule is pretty much already set. So we get into mid-September, third or fourth week of September, and we have a scheduled 8 p.m. Eastern Time Friday night game in Seattle. We're supposed to do Stanford, Washington, and that's supposed to be our Friday night game. So we're thinking, all right, 5 o'clock West Coast local time kickoff. Stanford runs the football a decent amount. I feel like, all right, this is probably a 3.5 hour game at the longest. We're done at 8:30, and we go to the airport. Mac's on a red eye. Molly can probably catch a flight back. She was living in LA at the time. She could probably make it back home, no problem. I can take a red eye to wherever I have to go to next. I think I had to go, if I'm not mistaken, to New Jersey, I want to say. I think I had a game at the Meadowlands on Sunday, so it wasn't a huge deal in terms of travel that week. So I figured, hey, Mac's going to be on a red-eye flight because he's got to do Saturday ABC Studio. And on Saturday, Texas is playing Oklahoma State at noon. So they want Mac in studio, understandably so, to talk about Charlie Strong and how, is he on the hot seat? This was the Texas is back. They beat Notre Dame, but then had some rocky moments. So obviously they want Mac in studio to talk about it. So all these things are in place. We're going to make it. We're taking the red-eye. We're fine. Stanford, Washington ends up being a top 10 game on a fairly weak slate that weekend. It was a fairly rough schedule. If you go back and look at the games that weekend, it wasn't a great schedule. So, and in particular for ESPN that weekend, I think Fox had a couple like big games that weekend. I think obviously CBS took the best SEC game. So I think the schedule for ESPN wasn't great. So naturally, you're going to give Herbie and Fowler your best game, whatever game they're doing Saturday night or whatever on ABC. And then the second best game of the weekend goes to, at that time, Joe Tessitore, Todd Blackledge, Holly Rowe. Second best game that weekend, frankly, was Stanford-Washington. And it was a top 10 game. So they understandably put them on that game. And they're like, well, we're going to give you BYU Toledo. It's a Friday night game still. There is a red-eye flight at 1:20 a.m. out of Salt Lake City that Mac can take to get to Connecticut eventually for the studio. And we're like, all right, this might be a little tough, but okay. Best case scenario, because this happened so fast, we couldn't get somebody in. Maybe it was oversight. This is the part that's above my pay grade. I don't know. And I don't know who's responsible for it. And I don't think anybody's truly at fault for this. I don't think anybody did anything wrong. But this ain't the first time this has happened. And I imagine it won't be the last time. Something like this, I'm sure, will happen again. It's just unfortunate that it happened to a nice guy like Mac. Anyway, I'm making this story much longer than it needs to be. My apologies. We had a thought, all right, 3-4 minutes left in the game. Maybe we have a blowout game. Mac can sneak out of the booth with 3 or 4 minutes left. No problem. So we're getting closer to the game. We're getting up to Friday. We're in a production meeting, and our crew is together at the hotel, and we're like, man, this might be a little bit tough. Like, game's at 8:15 Mountain Time, local time at BYU. Provo, Utah is about 40 minutes away from the Salt Lake City airport. So we're thinking our dead time is like 11:50. If we get to 11:50, Mac's got to be on the road to get to the airport in time to get through security, who's got to stay open for the red eye. So we're thinking, all right, he's got to be there by like 12:30, 12:40, just in case, for a 1:20 a.m. flight. So we have an escort for him. We got a police escort ready to go at the end of the game. Whatever he needs, we're going to be ready to go. So then the game happens, and it is a ridiculous game. It's like 21-21 in the second quarter. It's an absolute shootout. First play of the game was like a 75-yard touchdown for Toledo. Like, we were out of the gates, off the blocks, red hot in that game. So it ended up being an awesome game. We get to like 11:45, and I'm talking to my producer. I'm like, dude, Mac's going to have to go. What do we do? And he's like, we can't just, there's 12 minutes left in the game. We can't just let him go and not say anything. We have to say something. And I think in the years after, I'd always questioned whether it was the right decision or not. And not blaming the producer, this is collective. Like, I always question whether we made the right decision or not. And I think over the years, I've come to realize we did make the right decision. Because if we showed up, in the fourth quarter of this amazing game, and Mac Brown doesn't speak for 13 minutes of game time, which is probably going to equate to at least an hour or 45 minutes of on-air time, and you just don't hear his voice, he's 67. I'm convinced people are going to think he died in the booth. So I'm glad we said it on camera. It was a little bit awkward, but we had fun with it. And then Molly, who kicked ass on the sideline, and Ed Svita, who was my statistician, and Bill Garrity, who was my spotter, did yeoman's work to make it easier on me en route to calling the end of that game. So that's how that happened. I'm so sorry that story took so long, but there were so many elements to it, and I thought I wanted to give you the whole picture. So that is the infamous Mac leaving in the fourth quarter story. NBert13, as someone who's currently a journalism major, my goal is to end up in a booth one day. Do you have any advice for how to make that goal more achievable? Again, if you're in school, as you said, you're a journalism major, just do it. Figure out what you're good at. Figure out what you suck at. Figure out what is good. What's the standard that you want to meet, and try to adjust your own stuff to get to that point. Imitation is a sincere form of flattery, but it's also a good way to learn how to do the job and how to be good and how to suck, and then eventually you find your own voice and you combine it with all the lessons that you learn. So the more you do it, the better at it you'll get, and that's the best and most important piece of advice I can possibly give to you. B1 Gas Fan, what is your favorite shake, and why is it a chocolate cake shake from Portillo's? I just had one the other night on Sunday while watching The Last Dance, reliving my childhood about the Jordan years. So naturally I wanted to have Chicago food, so I had an Italian beef and a chocolate cake shake. And I'm trying to eat less beef and not eat so terribly, but I thought it was a good excuse to have one on Sunday night. Chocolate cake shake, for those who don't know, You take a piece of chocolate cake, mush it all up, and mix it in with a chocolate milkshake, and you drink it, and you get little pieces of chocolate cake in the shake. It's one of the best desserts of all time. Panda Bugs, had you developed any new hobbies in the time of quarantine? Funny you ask. That's not a new hobby. That's an old hobby. I've been doing that. I've been playing guitar for a long time. But that is the new hobby. I have been beating myself up to learn how to play the piano for a long time. In the corner there, that's a DJ setup, and then in the corner is my violin, which is currently broken. I played the violin from like the time I was 8 until like I was 20, so I can still play. I never learned how to play the piano, so that is my new current hobby. You wrote Strawberry Tea, another question. Thanks again for all these guys. Again, I appreciate this. You wrote an amazing piece about your father, which you shared again several years later in his memory. What do you think is the most important thing he ever taught you, and do you think you've reached that Gregory Peck status? I talked about my dad being the Gregory Peck man's man without being remotely close to the size or the gravitas of somebody like a Gregory Peck. So yeah, if you look behind the guitar there, that is a wonderful painting on glass with spray paint that a very talented artist named Tim Carmody did, and a friend of mine commissioned him to create that in March of 2018 when my dad passed. So, and then that is a photo of my mom and dad, just me kissing my parents on the cheek. So I like that photo too. No, I have not reached that Gregory Peck status. He's an awesome figure, and I have not reached that status. Most important thing my dad taught me, I could probably say the work ethic thing, but I kind of got that by proxy. He never really had to tell us to work hard. I think we just did by watching him. I have 3 older brothers who all are very hardworking people. My mom is a very hardworking person. I think I just get that from all of them. But my dad kind of personified that. And I would say that just to be nice to him, he was such a nice guy. He was so nice to everybody. He didn't give a shit about color, creed, didn't really care about like any of that stuff. At least it never let on, Maybe my dad was a virulent racist and I didn't know it, but he never let us know that. He was always very, very kind to everybody, and I think that's probably just the best thing you can teach somebody. Working hard and being nice are 2 pretty good lessons to learn. So I'm glad I got that from him. Dumbo1309, which schools have the best media relations staffs? Oh my God, they're the unsung heroes of what we do for a living. Media relations departments for pro teams, sports information departments for college programs. Oh my God, the unsung heroes. There are so many great ones out there. I've worked with so many in the SEC over the years, just being like a volleyball, softball, football, basketball, baseball guy. I've worked all those sports in the SEC at various points. There's so many great SEC staffs. The ACC is outstanding. There's some Hall of Famers out there. North Carolina, getting to know Mac. It helps when it's Mac as the head coach, but their staff is so accommodating to us this year. David Shaw and does a great job at Stanford. His media relations staff is very good. Tim Tessalone at USC. I've done so many USC games the last few years. What a champion. I'd be remiss if I kept naming people, because it's a joke how hard these people work to make our jobs so much easier. So many great schools out there. So next time you see somebody on that's an SID, buy them a coffee or something. Madam Gopher, thanks for doing this. You're far and away my favorite sportscaster in the business. That's very kind of you to say. Your excitement and down-to-earth attitude make it feel like I'm watching games with a fellow fan of the sport. Cool. I'm glad it feels that way. 2 questions. Have you ever watched a replay of a game you called and wondered, why did I say that or phrase it that way? If so, are you willing to tell us any particular moments? I have a bajillion of them. I just can't think of any like these, like the phrasing things, like Archer style, right off the top of my head. I'll just tell you to Google Deadspin Kelvin Taylor, or Deadspin Fred Taylor Adam Amin, and I think you'll find the story that you're looking for. What are your top 5 favorite movies? Pulp Fiction, Karate Kid, Bull Durham is on that list. just trying to think, like, what's the perfect movie? What's a movie that's so rewatchable? I mean, I love Inception. It's just such, it's such a mind fuck. I'm sorry. Graduation 2017. Could you beat Kirk Herbstreit in a fight? No. Kirk is a tall, in shape former quarterback. I could not beat up Kirk Herbstreit. I couldn't beat up Chris Fowler, although Chris Fowler's jacked. There's no way I could beat him up. I can't beat up that booth. I can't beat up Maria Taylor, Tom Rinaldi, anybody on that crew. I can't beat anybody up. I can't beat anybody up in general. I know the answer to this one from Officer War. What's been your favorite Hasselbeck or McAfee good old days story during a game? I know exactly what story I want to tell. We were doing a game in Atlanta at Georgia Tech this year, and Molly did a great job of talking about this catapult system, which basically, like, it's one of those internal trackers that's embedded in shoulder pads for football players, and it like measures, running, heart rate, whatever. Like, I'm sure that it does plenty other than that, but just for the sake of the story, that's what that does. So, more importantly, it measures how fast you run. So Matt tells this story about how he and Pat, when they were in Colts training camp, were using the catapult system, and I think Reggie Wayne was on. Maybe Reggie Wayne was on the team. Like T.Y. Hilton was on the team. I don't think Reggie. This is way past Reggie Wayne. T.Y. Hilton's on the team. He's running like 20 miles an hour, right? T.Y.'s a blazer, so he's sprinting. The running backs go, skill guys go, DBs go, and they're all going like 19, 20, 21 miles an hour. Somebody on the field is going 25 miles an hour, and they're like, "Holy shit! Who is this guy who is going 25 an hour?" Turns out, Pat McAfee found the golf cart and started riding the golf cart full speed back and forth up the field, so his catapult system registered him going at 25 miles an hour. If you could attend, the Craven one, if you could attend any non-postseason game as a fan, what would you pick, and who would you pick for calling that game? And what sleeping rivalry needs to come back the most? I'd love Texas A&M to come back. Automatic answer to that. If you guys had any non-postseason game as a fan, what would you pick? I mean, I'd love to go to like Notre Dame, USC, at USC, in December with like the 5 o'clock local time kickoff. I would love to go see that as a fan. If I had to pick a current crew to do it, I'll put Sean and Todd and Holly, or I'll put any of those crews up. But if I could pick like any historic, give me Keith Jackson. Like give me Jackson and like Fouts in their like 06, Texas USC days. Like I would love that. Pepe Silva official, of all the college towns you visited over the years to call games, which are your favorites to visit and why? All the college towns you visit over the years. I love Tallahassee. Tallahassee's a great college town. Madison, Wisconsin. My last long-term girlfriend lived in Madison, so I became and I've called a handful of games there too. But I love Madison, Wisconsin. I think it's one of the best college towns in the country. Lincoln, Nebraska, an amazing college town. College Station. Madison, though, is probably like my number one. Just because I know I'm biased. I spent so much time there, but I love Madison, Wisconsin. Mr. Amin, Dial Huang, in the wake of the major changes in sports and society during the current situation, what are the most important challenges and opportunities facing sports broadcasters, people, and media outlets? People-wise, individually, it's the tough part is for people like me, because the content that I create, my content is the games. Like, I'm there to call games. So for people like us, it's a little tougher, or maybe not. I don't want to sit here and say tough, compare and contrast, but it's tough for me personally, and I would imagine other game callers feel the same way. I would say for like the rights holders and like networks and things like that, it's to fill this content. I'm sure ad revenue is a little tougher to come by these days, just because games create so much of that, or are such a reason why ad revenue is created. So I'm sure that's part of the reason. that it's a little tough right now. Opportunities, listen, you have a chance to be creative. You have a chance to make your own stuff. You have a chance to find a niche. You have a chance to try something different right now. So I guess that's the best thing I can think of in terms of opportunity. And I'm so impressed with, all these companies, all these media outlets, and just watching, my colleagues at ESPN do such a good job with like the WNBA draft, like how they were able to create a show, how Around the Horn's done it, in a non-studio setting. There's plenty of places that have done it outside of our place that have done it. So that's impressive to me. I think that's an opportunity for a lot of people. Text 786, what's something about your profession that would surprise someone who is not in your field? I think people recognize now like that it takes a lot of prep. Like I don't think anybody doesn't think that you need to do research to do this stuff. I think it's the additional like nuance of this. I think you'd be surprised to know how much we don't give you, like in terms of information. Like we're trying to not overload stuff. So we're trying to pick and choose the best information for the best possible time. So if you get annoyed with somebody, while you're watching a game, just know that they're doing their best to navigate you through the proper times. I think what people wouldn't realize is that the job is fairly easy to do okay. You can do this job okay. I think what impresses me about so many of the people I work with, like the colleagues and the people I look up to, is that how well they're able to condense so much information into these little concise packets that is tolerable and palatable for you to listen to while you're watching a hopefully exciting game. So I don't think people would realize necessarily that the second and third and fourth layers that are required, that come with using that preparation, not just researching, but now you have to use it right. So I think that'd be the other part that people don't really recognize as much. The Orange Football. What's a call you've made that stands out as one of your favorites? Also, do you ever go back and listen to your calls and games for either analysis or enjoyment? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've gone back and thought that was really fun. I hope I did a good job. Let's listen. Let's watch. I do it less and less because I don't think I enjoy it as much. I don't think I enjoy listening to myself as much, just because I think I'm fairly critical of myself, like all of us are. But no, there are times where I've enjoyed going back and watching and listening, and it's more so like times where you either have a good time with the people you're working with, you make jokes, you say something funny, you all have a laugh about it, or it's like cool plays or a fun game. I think those are the reasons you go back. That's where you get enjoyment from it. Analysis, yeah, I have to go back and watch, and I have to listen and think critically and watch critically and, rip myself apart in some ways. I do it less and less now. Hey, real quick, by the way, that is right there. That is Mac Brown right there. That's a ticket from his Hall of Fame thing. I got distracted fairly easily. A call that stood out. I think the Iron Bowl call, the radio call for it, just because of the magnitude of the moment. No, not that many. I think people know what they are. It's Enrique Ogunbowale in the Final Four. It's LeBron beating the buzzer. It's the war on I-4, the Mike Hughes touchdown, or a couple plays in that game. There's some great college football games I've called, but I don't think there's I don't know if I've said anything truly memorable other than some of the moments that I recognize on my own. Let's see, where are we at? Mitchell J. Burkett. What was your favorite memory from this past season with Pat, Matt, and Molly? I had such a good time. We had a great dinner in Pittsburgh towards the end of the year at a great place called Serafino's. I hope the best for you guys. Joe Serafino, amazing, amazing restaurant. I hope things are going well for you in a weird time. That was awesome. We had such a great time doing that together. We were on Beale Street together one night before we did the Memphis game, and that's where I really started bonding with this crew. That we got along pretty fast right away. We had a really funny story that I'm not allowed to share from Wake Forest that I will never tell anybody, or at least not now, or at least until somebody else tells it. I'll wait for somebody else to tell it first. But in about a 3-week stretch, something happened in September. Then we had the Tulane-Houston game where we had an absolute blast and an amazing game with the Jalen McCleskey touchdown with 3 seconds left. I would say that night was really hard because we had a lot of production issues. We couldn't hear each other until like 2 minutes, like right before we went on air. Pat and Molly were supposed to do something on the field before the game in our open and couldn't do it because there were production problems. So they, Pat's sprinting back up right before kickoff. And it was so hard getting on the air. And our crew did such a good job. Our technical crew did such a good job of just getting us on the air. But that brought us really close. And then the week after, we were hanging out together in Memphis on Beale Street. And I could just tell that these were people that I really liked. We all went out for Matt's birthday. I took everybody to Gus's Fried Chicken for Matt Hasselbeck's birthday in Memphis. Like, we became really close as a crew, and they're great friends, having known Molly from before. And Pat and Matt are just awesome human beings, and we all know how awesome and crazy and nutty Pat is. And it was just a great mix of people, I think. Pathological Falcon, is there a locale at which you'd like to call a game that you've never worked? Yeah, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, I haven't done a game there yet. Obviously, I mentioned the Rose Bowl earlier. Autzen, haven't done a college game at Autzen. The Husky Stadium, I love Seattle. I think Seattle's such a great city. So, yeah, there's a bunch of places. BGR 308, how many college football games do you normally go to in a season? Right around 18 to 20, trying to see where the 18 I went to last season compares to people who paid to go. If you're going to one just about every week on a regular schedule, you're probably going to call about 15 games or so in the regular season, counting maybe if you call a conference championship. And then, you maybe 1 or 2 bowl games, maybe 3 bowl games. So, yeah, right around 20, in that range, 15 to 20. I haven't been going on this sub much in the last couple months. Just open up and see Adam Amin everywhere. What the fuck? Toast said that. I agree. It is a real what the fuck anytime I'm doing anything. Sometimes Wise says I'm the unofficial mascot of Reddit college football, so I guess I'll take that. Owlage, what's the busiest week you've had in terms of broadcasting? Also, you replied to me a few times on Twitter, which I'll always remember, so wanted to thank you for that. No problem at all. What's the busiest week? I've had weeks where I've done 6 games in 6 cities in 8 days. I've had 7 and 10 in different sports. When I was doing, these last few years, I've been doing NFL games since 2012. I started doing NFL on the radio since in 2012, and I've been doing a fairly full schedule most years since. Some years it's a half schedule, but usually it's a full schedule. So when you get down to like November now like October when the NBA season begins, but when I get down to like really November and December in the bowl season or early parts of the month, and really November when college basketball starts up, the NBA is kind of getting going. I'm doing NFL, I'm working college football, so you're doing 4 sports essentially, and even in October now, there's a possibility where you could do 5 sports. I guess maybe that's not necessarily fair because college basketball, like you're doing Major League Baseball games, postseason stuff like that. So I've had plenty of moments, and you do like event style stuff too, where you go to like the Women's College World Series, and you're doing 6 games, you're doing 2 games a day, then you're doing a post game show where you're doing the whatever baseball tonight pregame, you're doing a show in the middle, you're doing a post game, like there are some busy weeks like that too. That time of year, really, NBA playoff time is really busy because we're going game to game to game to game to game. So you might do like 5 games in 6 days. Granted, it's all NBA, and you might see the same teams again. So, MJP242, have you ever had to fight through an issue while calling a game? Yeah, audio issues, monitors go down, your headset doesn't work. You're trying to work through that. I mentioned the Tulane game. We couldn't hear each other. We couldn't get on the air. Our transmission feed didn't work. Basically, when you create a broadcast, for the most part, there's a production truck that creates a picture, and then you have a separate satellite truck that takes that picture, beams it back to Connecticut or wherever you're broadcasting from, and that beams that signal out. So that process of getting from A to B to C, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to get through, and obviously the technical crews take care of most of that, but for us, we're just trying to navigate through like the physical aspects of it. So plenty, yeah. I mean, it's shocking to know sometimes. Like you would literally look at some of these shows and go, how the hell did you even get on the air? Sometimes it's amazing how TV works. Danny Benavidez, if Pat goes to the Bucks and gets you in on some sort of deal, what would be your role? I'm assuming that means if Pat becomes the new kicker or punter for the Buccaneers. What would be my role? I'll be hype man. I'll be McAfee hype man. Gene Deckerhoff is the longtime radio play-by-play guy for the Bucks. If he wants to call it quits, he also does the Florida State Seminoles basketball and football games. If he says, "Hey, I'm done," someday I'll jump in for that, I guess. Jamie or Jamek? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Hey, Adam, I'm a PA. At ESPN, but an aspiring sportscaster myself. PA is production assistant. Just wanted to say I love the jolt of positivity and kindness you've been showing. Our industry hella lacks that, in my opinion. It gets toxic and too individualistic and competitive all too often. That's true, unfortunately. But I will say there's a lot more nice people than there are jerks. I just think the jerks, if the jerks that do exist, I think are a minority, but they're a very loud and very obvious minority. Like you can tell who a jerk is. Like, if there are 10% of this business are jerks, that would feel maybe correct. Maybe 15%. Yeah, even that seems high. The majority of the people in this business are just regular, nice, decent people. And so are the jerks. They're just jerks about the job, I think, more than anything else. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent. That all said, what's the one thing that stands out as the most joyful about what you do? For me, it's knowing that for many hardworking people, sports often is the one brief moment of solace or relief in their day. In sports media, we're the conduit to them that provides that consistently. Keep doing what you're doing. Maybe I'll see you around at Bristol or at a game. Yeah, definitely, man. I would say that's definitely a big one. Like, and I think I appreciate that more now. Like, we are your break. We're the breather. We're the respite from a lot of bullshit that you have to deal with, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's watching the news, which sucks. Which again, I wish we had live sports to combat this awful, awful news. But of course, that would be counterintuitive, so I understand that. But I think we are the respite from the fray, and we give a lot of relief, and we give a breather to a lot of people just bringing you these sports. And I think the last 8 weeks, has it been 8 weeks? I don't know, 7 weeks, whatever it is, 6, 7 weeks. I think it's made me realize, obviously, how non-essential sports are. Like, we're still a functioning society. I know you might not feel that way based on the situation that you're in, but like we're still functioning at minimum we're functioning, and we're doing it without sports, without live games being played. So you come to realize that not only if you're an athlete in some ways, but sometimes as a person who's just adjacent to the game, how non-essential you are. But what it's also made me realize, because of what we just discussed, that it's like you're the respite, you're the breather, you're a release, you're relief from regular everyday life. We are that much more essential. Maybe we're more essential than we ever gave ourselves credit for. Although I'm sure we don't need to give ourselves any more credit than we already do. We don't need to pat ourselves on the back anymore. But I would say this time has made me realize both how non-essential and maybe how essential we really are in what we do. So maybe that's the thing I can take joy in and take solace in, is that I know we feel kind of helpless right now, and I'm sure other people in other industries feel the same, but you are fairly essential in a lot of ways that maybe you don't think about. Fun with Trout. Adam, if organized sports as we know it doesn't come back, insanity I know, what new sports will you turn to covering? Cornhole, marble racing, competitive eating? What do you mean, will I turn to competitive eating? I've done the hot dog contest twice. I can't imagine a world where I can't hear you in a voiceover, so please find something. Just dog interviews, I think, will be the focus from here on out. And I'll just ride these AMAs for all they're worth. I'll say the same things every single time out, over and over for an hour at a time. Skip's Leg Day 28. What's up, Skinny Legs? What school has the best media buffet? What's the worst? What's your go-to item of choice from said buffet? Texas has a very, very good spread, as you might expect. One of the homes for barbecue. Franklin Barbecue has catered a Texas meal when I've been there, and I am a big, big fan. I think Texas does a great job. We had a great meal earlier this year. Where was that now? Oh, East Carolina. East Carolina was an awesome spread. Barbecue, peach cobbler, just real classic Southern like barbecue food. And I get very excited for like local college football barbecue. I just think it's great. Like the local choices are usually going to be, some of the best you've had. Adam from Golden Knight 239. Adam, what do you find to be your best favorite fourth quarter call, and why is it the kick return touchdown during the UCF-USF game? We talked about that. It's awesome. The Iron Bowl, pretty good fourth quarter as well. I keep screwing this up. There it is. Riff Ram Bazoo. Given that there's a few rumors that you might be tapped for a future Monday Night Football gig, I don't think that's happening anytime soon, or other NFL productions with the NFL. What is your dream broadcasting job? By the way, those are linked. That's why I read those. Otherwise, I wouldn't, work the image like that. What is your dream broadcasting job at ESPN? If ESPN is the future, college football, NBA, tennis, those are really events that I would love to be a part of. I love the U.S. Open and Wimbledon. I love the NBA. I absolutely adore working the NBA. It's being able to do Bulls games these last couple of years, doing the NBA on ESPN and ESPN Radio for like big playoff games. That's my first NBA game ever. That was me and Doris Burke in Chicago, actually. We called the Bulls-Timberwolves game at the United Center. And then this was my first NBA playoff game. I did it on the radio, and I guess, again, I should just pick this up. That is Doris Burke, and then that's Steph Curry. Me, PJ Carlissimo, and Steph Curry interviewing him post-game after the Warriors beat the Blazers in the first playoff game I ever called. That was at Old Oracle Arena. Those things. College football, NBA, I love tennis. It's pretty easy. I'm a fairly easy guy. Welcome back, Adam. Not entirely college football related. This is from Topher3003. You called the crosstown shootout, Cincinnati versus Xavier. What were your thoughts on the rivalry? Amazing. It was a great game. Trayvon Blewett of Xavier, I think, scored over 40. I want to say he had like 30 in the first half, or like 29. He had like a ridiculous first half in that game. It was an awesome atmosphere. Great game. No fight that game. This was probably 2016 or 17. I want to say 17. Did you have a chance to try Skyline Chili? I've had Skyline Chili. I don't love it, but that's not because Skyline Chili is bad. I just don't love it. It doesn't really fit my palate. I don't like necessarily the sweetness of it. When I'm eating chili, it kind of throws me off. And I'm not like a pasta. I don't love the textures of pasta and chili as much as other people do. So I have no issue with it. I don't prefer it, I think is the best way I can say it. The GT Shaft. Adam, not sure if you saw Andy Staples' column yesterday. I did not, but I will read it based on this. But it definitely caught my attention as a possible game-changing approach. Georgia Tech and Coach Collins are really leaning into... Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Really leaning into the image likeness issue as a positive development. Doing like individual branding, like hiring a firm to do individual branding for each player. We met with Coach Collins this year, and listen, he's a salesman. Jeff Collins is a salesman. But you know what? It's genuine when he sells you Georgia Tech. When he sells you the state of Georgia, he's a Conyers, Georgia guy. It's not far from Atlanta. Like, that's his joint, man. He lives and dies at Waffle House. Now, whether you believe in it or buy into it or you don't, it's a hell of a marketing scheme. And I hate you calling it a scheme because it gives it a negative connotation. It's a great thing. He is doing the best he can to adapt to a modern era of college football. I think it's really cool. I know Scott Frost has talked about this in Nebraska. I think it's the right idea. Name, image, likeness is coming. And it should, just by any metric of decency for like a human being. Like, they should have the rights to their name and their face and like using your imagery to do something. Now, will that change a lot of marketing for NCAA schools? Yeah, maybe the marketing department doesn't do the brochure with an actual player on it. Maybe they put the mannequin or some nameless, faceless person into their marketing stuff and materials. Or if you have a Heisman campaign, you're going to have to pay the kid and say, hey, we're using your name, image, likeness. You get, we're either going to pay you or you're going to get a cut of something or whatever. Or maybe it's not meant to make money. That's fine. But I'm just saying that it's going to change how other schools have to do it because name, image, likeness by any metric should be involved. I don't know how I feel about paying players, like writing them checks or giving them stipends. I know it's a polarizing and divisive issue. I don't know exactly how I feel, but I know how I feel about name, image, likeness. And I think what Andy was talking about in that article, what Coach Collins is talking about, what Coach Frost is talking about, and I know they're not the only ones, and I bet you this is going to catch on as time goes on. I think it's an inevitability. Assuming normal conditions, which I don't know how money is going to be affected, with potential pushback of a season, but I think if all things are considered normal, I think this is coming, and I think it's a great way to get out ahead of it. The Fish Whisperer 1. First off, thank you for your call. The epic UCF-USF game, a screen against the Blitz, the perfect play. I love that call, Otis Anderson. Thanks, by the way, Otis. We gave you a lot of love. We told a great story about how the program you wanted to go to, or you wanted to pursue, was at UCF. That's why you turned down all these big offers. And we said Scott Frost gets this, great player, this key cog for his offense. Next play, screen against the Blitz, touchdown, UCF. Jumps out in front by a full touchdown. You know what? Going back a few questions, that's a phrase I wish I didn't screw up. Because I said a screen against the Blitz, the perfect play, Otis Anderson may have sealed the deal for UCF. There was still a minute, 45 left, or 2 minutes left. Next play from scrimmage, or next couple plays from scrimmage, they get the touchdown to Darnell Solomon. And then next play after that was the kickoff return touchdown. So I didn't call it, but I wish I would have said something a little bit different there. Anyway, what is the coldest, most miserable weather you've had to call? Virginia Tech, North Carolina was very cold, but I wouldn't say that was miserable. That was fine. Nebraska, Iowa, 2015, big game, Black Friday game, brutal weather. Not snow-wise, it's just a cold day. Boise State, Fresno State, pretty cold. Mountain West Championship game a few years back. There's a couple in there. Virginia Tech, Virginia, 2018, very cold game. Bonus question. I know this is college football. I love your work on the women's Final Four. Thank you. Is a Wale shot the biggest highlight you've called? Probably. It's a national championship. Hard to beat that. Not only the semi, but the championship. Hard to beat that. The B Sumner 52. I don't really have a question. I just want to thank you for getting Zito's name into a national championship broadcast. I did it by making fun of his account to Billabuddies. I know Zito was trying to lose weight. We were having fun at his expense for it. I hope he didn't. We reconnected a couple weeks after that in Indy. I did a Pacers Bulls game, and he and Tone Diggs from the Pat McAfee show were both there, and we got to reconcile. So Zito's my guy. He knows that. He's great. They're all great guys at the McAfee show. Funny Flywheel. What do you think is the most egregious referee ruling you've seen? You can pick more than one. Oh man. There was one in the Holiday Bowl in 2015. Wisconsin was playing USC, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the player. I wish I could. I want to say it was one of the receivers. Maybe it was Alex Erickson for Wisconsin. I want to say he didn't step out of bounds, but he got ruled as having stepped out of bounds, and negated a touchdown for Wisconsin. And you can't. That's not a play you can go back and review. Once you whistle it dead, the play's dead. You could go back to see if a play goes all the way through. You can check to see if a guy did step out of bounds. You can't do it the other way around. It's a non-reviewable play. That clock issue in that North Carolina Wake Forest game wasn't very good earlier this year, where Michael Carter stepped out with probably a second to go. But again, the stakes in that game, it's a non-conference game. That still could have meant a lot though for both teams. So I don't want to minimize that. Those are just a couple. I'm sure there have been so many more. Guys, refereeing is a really hard job. It is so hard. It's such a hard job. My buddy Aaron Levitt, a good friend of mine from Valparaiso University, still defined men's basketball SID. How sad are you that the all-Valpo college basketball booth was so short-lived? Bryce Drew works 1 year in college hoops, and of course, no surprise, my man gets a job at Grand Canyon University. So super sad. Obviously, I am thrilled for him. He's such a great person. He's such a great recruiter. I'm biased. I've known the guy for 15 years. I am hella biased, but I'm so happy for him. It sucks, though. We were having a great year. Obviously, we were getting ready to call the American Conference Tournament. That was the event that I was at when all this the COVID stuff happened. And then lastly, I think, is this the last one? Did we go through all of them? Did I miss any? I hope I didn't miss any. Guys, again, thank you so much. This will be just about an hour. Is there a game you wish you called? This is from Metal Chick. Is there a game you wish you called but didn't, and why? I think, not to get end on a down note, and you have another question, so I'll end on a better note. But I wish I had called the 2018 American Conference Women's Basketball Championship game, because that would have meant that my dad would still be here, potentially. When my dad passed, I was in the middle of calling 2 semifinal games for this conference tournament in Connecticut. And when I got off the air, I called my brother, who had been calling me. He told me that our dad had a heart attack and that I need to come home. And of course, I left, and I was on my way to Boston overnight. I had somebody drive me to Boston. And on the drive to Boston, I was trying to catch a flight back home the next morning. On the drive, I got the news that he had passed. So I guess in the roundabout sense, I wish I could have called that championship game. I left before the finals, and I have no regrets about not calling the game, but I wish I could have called that, because that meant I would not have had a reason, the reason that I did, to come home, and my dad would have watched the game on TV instead. So that's one I wish I could have called. That may not have been your question, by the way. That's just how I interpreted it. And the last question from Metal Chick will end on a much better note. There aren't many women in the broadcast booth. How can we encourage more women to work in play-by-play? I hope you've watched, if you're a woman out there who has ever had the curiosity to do it. Now's a great time to find some role models, by the way. Beth Mowins has been doing it forever. Pam Ward's been doing it forever. Those are 2 of the best role models that you could find in terms of female announcers. But they're not, and I know Beth more. I'm closer to Beth just because we've worked the World Series together in college softball. So I've gotten to hang around with Beth the last several years. We've become good friends. She's not a female role model. She's a role model who happens to be female. She works her ass off, just is as cool of a person to hang out with, great teammate, all that stuff. But in terms of how do we encourage more, certainly Beth has done her part. Pam has done her part. And by the way, those are just the first 2 I think of, just because they're so, we're at the same place. And they do that job. But Courtney Lyle is a baller. The stuff she does with SEC Network, she is so talented. I've watched her develop over the years. She is great. Kirsten Karback is doing a baseball on the radio. And we haven't had very many female baseball announcers in the minor leagues. Now they're starting to pop up a little bit more. But I always thought that if you're a woman who wants to do play-by-play, there's a lot of minor league baseball jobs out there. And again, I know it's a different time right now, and we're in a state of flux. But with just watching, Courtney do what she's doing, Kirsten do what she's doing. Melanie Newman has been doing big things. She was doing the Salem Red Sox, and now she's working on the TV and radio side for the Baltimore Orioles. That's a big deal. These are big deals, and they don't have to be a big deal to you. If you're rolling your eyes right now, and I'm sorry if you are, rolling your eyes at this answer and just being blah, 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 you're so woke, fuck off. Okay, I get it. But if it doesn't affect you, you don't really have to worry about it. But if you are somebody that, hey, I should look into this, I have an inkling that I maybe want to do this, there's plenty of good role models right now. And this is a time where people want to hire more women. They want to hire different voices. They want to hire people who look different, people who sound different. I'm not saying that's the norm, but having variety is better just in general. When they say that it's the spice of life or whatever. But I think more importantly, variety it's better. It just gives you a chance to hear different voices, and you don't have to like all of them. I don't like listening to most of the people that I work with, and it's not because they're not good. It's because I'm guilty of playing the comparison game. So I don't. I know I'm kind of drifting off into a major tangent here, but it frustrates me sometimes because I'm a minority, and there was a time where brown people didn't do this job. So I'm not going to get pissed off when more women want to do the job. I don't care. I want them to do it. I want diversity. I have thrived in diversity. I'm respected because of diversity, and I have a responsibility in that too. Now, and somebody had to give me a chance. And I'm not saying they gave me a chance because I was brown. I hope they gave me a chance because I was good. And it should be that way. But if you're good as a man or a woman, you should be working on improving, and there's going to be an opportunity for you somewhere. So I guess in a really roundabout way, that's how I would say encourage it. Do it. Just do it. Just go do it. There's plenty of great role models, male and female. Just figure out what sounds good for you, what's good for you, and know that this is a job you can do. And I think people still need to hear that. I wish they didn't have to, because I just gave you a half dozen, a Kate Scott at the Pac-12 network. My God. What a badass she is. She's done NFL. She did the NHL in March. You know, she was part of that all-female broadcast crew. Like, there are so many more role models now than there used to be. I feel that way about people who look and sound like me. I'm sure there are more women out there now who are seeing people who look and sound like them, and they can say, why can't I do that? I think that's half the battle. So, again, I'm sorry I gave you such a tangential answer. I'm sorry I went off on a couple of different roads there, but I say this trying to articulate something as a fellow minority who is now getting the opportunity and seeing other people who look like him get more opportunities to do this. I think it's fun. I think diversity is great, and I just like seeing it. It doesn't mean everybody has to be equal. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying seeing pieces of everybody, seeing a better picture and a more constructed picture of everybody, even in the people who call your games, I think is cool. So that's where we'll end this. Again, I'm sorry I rambled for 66 minutes, but it was just so much easier to do this than it was to go through all of these great comments and questions. I know it wasn't 67 questions, but there's 67 comments. To go through all these comments and enjoy what you guys wrote and hopefully respond in a way that made sense to all of you. I appreciate you. Hopefully we'll do this again sometime, and thanks for having me.